Hey everyone, today I'm going to go over how to use the React Context API that's going to be released with React 16.3. At the time of recording, it's not been released yet, but it should be very soon. I've used the Create React App package to spin up a simple little app here. What I've had to do, and if we have a look at my package.json, I've installed React 16.3 Alpha 1 and React DOM 16.3 Alpha 1, and that's to make sure that I have access to the new Context API. This can be done by running yarn add react at next and react DOM at next. So if we have a look at our code, we have three separate components. We have this app component, which has a little bit of state set, active Pokemon. We have the wonderful Charmander, and that returns a little title and this Pokédex component, which takes an active Pokemon prop, and that just passes through the state we've set up above. And we take the Pokédex item, that passes through the active Pokemon, which it receives as props. And then finally we have a Pokemon component, which uses the cool new React Fragment API and just renders out the Pokemon. And it looks like this. So nothing very exciting happening here. One thing you will notice though is that we're having to pass down active Pokemon through several different components. And this is something that drives a lot of people to use Redux long before they need to avoid this kind of prop drilling. So today we're going to use the Context API to help avoid this. The way you get started then is by creating context. So we can do this by using react.create context. Now I'm going to log this out so we can see what it actually is. I just opened the console here, and it is an object. Now the two keys we're actually concerned about are consumer and provider. That's what we're going to be using to pass data around. So let's do that. We'll start by creating a new component, and we're going to call it provider. So that will have a render method, which will return some JSX. And what we need to do is open up this context dot provider, and we're going to close that tag, and then in between here we are just going to call this dot props dot children. So anything we wrap in this provider component is just going to render out whatever's passed to it as a child, but every component in that subtree then will have access to this context. Now we have to pass a value in here, and this will be what's actually made available to the app. So in this case, I'm just going to pass in a string of hello world. Now, we have to wrap our app in this, so let's do that. I need to close that properly. And again, we'll fix indentation. Now, all being well, I haven't broken anything. Perfect, so it should do exactly what it did before. Now, how do we actually get access to this data? So I'm going to come down to the Pokemon component, and I'm going to comment that out right now, and we're going to rewrite it. So const Pokemon. I'm going to keep this for now, just so we don't break anything. We'll be removing it soon. And it's going to, first of all, start by using the context consumer. Whoop. Okay, now we don't actually pass data around using context with props. We use what are known as render props, which are really trendy in React right now. A lot of APIs you'll see use something like this. So it'll actually have a render prop. And in here you'll pass the JSX you want rendered out. But in this case, it uses a function as a child. So let's open up some curly braces to let React know we want to use some regular JavaScript. And this function gets access to the value passed into the provider, this thing up here. So let's pull that out. I'm just going to call this context for now, but it doesn't really matter what it's called. And we will log out that value. Whoop. Okay, let's see what happens. So value is not defined. Oh, what am I talking about? We're now passing this value through our entire React tree without having to pass props around. Next, I'm going to take the state from our app component and move it into our provider component. And that allows it to be available across the app. So let's paste it in here. And then for value here, we're actually going to set it equal to an object. We'll call this state, and that'll be equal to this.state. And then if we come back to this Pokemon component, we're going to destructure state out of that. And we're going to return this thing we already had. Uh-oh. So let's just fix this indentation and then we'll see if it worked. Now, we're not actually going to be accessing the Pokemon out of the prop anymore, so I'm going to remove this. We'll be getting it out of state instead. So state dot, and I think I called it active Pokemon up here. Let's just change that to Pokemon. Now I'm going to save this, and I think it's probably going to break. It did, and that's because we're no longer passing, because active Pokemon no longer exists in this component. So let's remove that. Which means we don't need this anymore. And the Pokemon component now gets its own values, so we don't need this anymore either. So I think if I've done this right, we should be back to what we had before, which we are, but now we're no longer having to pass props through several components. We can actually take this another step further by passing data back up the React tree. So what we're going to do here is allow the Pokemon to level up. And now I'm going to create a new key in here called actions. And again, this can be called whatever you want. I'm just following the kind of practices I picked up from Redux. So we're going to have a level up key, which will be an anonymous function that calls this dot set state, and we're going to use the callback version of it, and that should return an object which contains the key Pokemon. Now we're going to spread in the previous state's Pokemon, and then the only key we're going to overwrite is level, and that's going to be the previous state dot Pokemon dot level +1. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then what we can do is if we go down to our Pokemon component, we can now destructure actions out of here, and then I'm going to create a new button here. Called level up. So that looks well. Now what we can do is add an on-click handler, and that is going to call this dot actions level up. So all being well, our Pokemon can now level up. So that's been a quick introduction to the new Context API being released in React 16.3. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, let me know on Twitter. I am the Paul McBride. And if you want to see more content like this, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'll catch you next time.